Bukola, I think we'll get started with the papers.
Yes, indeed, Jeffrey. You want to go first?
Okay, let's get with the Guardian newspaper. Today, Thursday, January the 30th. So just to remind, Kyle is going to be joining us pretty soon. Because he was telling us yesterday that today is the last of the month. It's tomorrow, actually. Okay. All right, the headline for the guidelines said, Neglected Tropical Diseases Day. Spike in ailments pushes Nigerians' care funding gap to 8.6 trillion naira. I know I'd done a report about these tropical diseases, elephantiasis, and some of these, I think, is it river blindness? I can't remember all the details now. But some of these diseases that are within the tropics. But the bigger story here is that the spike and the funding gap, which is always that counterpart funding or total funding by donor development agencies. That figure is very scary. So if you want to know details about this, I think page 6 of the Guardian has all of the details for you. Health has been very prominent these days. Have you noticed?
Indeed, yes, indeed.
Yeah, I've noticed it.
And we're still not there yet in terms of the percentage of our funding allocated to healthcare in the country. And so whether it's neglected tropical diseases or other ailments that are a significant challenge, to the well-being of the population, there is that, funding issue, that affects the entire gamut, the entire value chain of the health sector, that sees, the challenge of brain drain, lack of capacity, to tackle these issues, and indeed, the spike in the number of people that die as a result of, inevitably, as a result of these diseases. But there are other significant stories on the front page of The Guardian, Jeffrey. NLC to protest against 50% Telecom's hike on Tuesday. And NLC is always set to protest. But when will they actually make good their threats to challenge this issue alongside other issues? Anyway, well, I just wanted to ask.
It's good to make your voices heard. Whether the response to your voice is another kettle of fish. But the NLC says it's unacceptable to get it up by 50%. The telcos themselves are saying the 50% is not enough. But there's another story before we leave The Guardian that talks about the NCCA suspending Max Air over Kano near crash incident. And we thank God that did not happen. With these crashes all over. Remember, United Airlines incident happened just days ago. Remember what happened in Seoul? I think I was watching one of the international networks before I came to work, where there's an incident in DC between a jet and an aircraft. I was just rushing to work, so I didn't really see the details. So I don't know what's going on with the airlines. But I think we had a conversation on our sister program where the authorities are saying our airlines, our airspace is safe. But I'm happy they've actually suspended them for the next 3 months. And the rule is that after investigation by the NSIB, if they are not satisfied, they may quite extend it. Right. Resumption will be after satisfactory investigation, depending on the outcome.
If it's a challenge specifically with the Boeing aircraft, then regulators should look into that space and
I don't know the kind of aircraft they use.
Decisively. I guess it's a Boeing aircraft, and we've had consistently challenges with the Boeing aircraft in recent times. So regulators should advise airlines on what exactly to do as far as aircraft or air transport is concerned. Well, our next stop this morning is Nigerian News Direct. And Nigerian News Direct leads with that concern of our political party space. PDP leadership tussle deepens as Anyanwu Okoye fight dirty over national secretary position. And there are some riders there. Okoye forced out of BOT meeting. Don't ride a dead horse to reach your destination, Damagun warns party leaders. An acting national chair condemns internal struggles, vows next meeting in February. When will that next meeting hold? We hope it does hold by February. And who is the dead horse that has been ridden to reach a destination? I just hope that party officials are not taking sides in this particular personality or clash or rivalry, as the case may be. There must be, an unbiased approach to looking coming up with a solution to this crisis, because it's embarrassing for a party that held power for 16 years, to come all out and wash its dirty linen in public, as leaders of the party have so done yesterday. So parties should not take sides. I hope this statement is not a reference to taking sides with one particular side in this dispute.
I just want to say PDP, APC, Labour, all of the parties, especially PDP, it's time to hold your NEC meetings. You have to be holding NEC meetings every 3 months. That's what most of the Constitution says. Because NEC is the biggest, besides the convention, the other organ of the party, that checks the activities of the party, intermittently to know how to make progress. But for some reason, these things don't happen. And internal democracy is part of the failure of our political class. Anyway, don't want to overdwell on that. If we move on now, I think there's a story.
Before we move on, there's a story that catches my attention.
Okay.
It's something that gladdens my heart, because we don't always have good stories to tell as far as, this job is concerned. But this is a good one. Lagos unveils 500 million naira subsidy intervention fund for poultry fish farmers. So,
that's nice.
Yeah, very nice. That's pleasant.
Implementation is always key.
Is always key.
So it's a good plan. This is just a plan. Let's make sure that the people that are involved, because how many times I say it?
The people that are involved.
The people that are involved, because things happen in this country.
As they say, policy execution is 10% implementation, not 90% result, or 90% implementation, 10% result. The idea is that result of the policy is key. So let's see the result before we assess the situation. But that's a pleasant story.
Yeah, so
and that's it from News Direct.
So a lot of other headlines too. The same. New Telegraph is the next. PDP crisis festers as Anyanwu Okoye disrupt BOT meeting. There was supposed to be that BOT meeting, and well, we've said this over and over. Everybody's speaking. There's a lot of interest wrangling, and all of this is ahead of 2027. How politicians can drop their personal ambition for the interest of the party is quite critical. We also see that we have NLC set to protest 50% Telecom's tariff hike February the 4th. Okay, so that's some of the stories you see in the New Telegraph. So you go to page 2, you see that story on NLC, and page 3 on the PDP crisis. There are other stories above and below the nameplates of the New Telegraph. Let's move on now to the Blueprint newspaper. That leads okay, there's still the PDP story there anyway, but if we leave that to the one above, Chad Basin, Bukola.
Yeah, and the big story here is that the president is demanding multifaceted response to security threats. Task states on poverty alleviation, other root causes. And, here's a clear consequence of the exit of Niger, Chad, and Burkina Faso from, the ECOWAS sub-region group, because there's a real issue of the refugee humanitarian situation as a result of the continuous fight against insurgency. And there's a spillover effect of people seeking some form of respite and refuge from the continuing fight against insurgency in that Lake Chad Basin, and not to talk about those also who are fleeing unrest in their own countries, in these countries that have exited. So where would be, the consensus or the rallying point to fight, to tackle these issues of humanitarian crisis that has bedeviled the sub-region? So there must be continuous engagement, so to speak, with these countries that have exited, without necessarily compromising the values of democracy that ECOWAS is trying to uphold. That's it for the big story. But the blueprint also covers the PDP crisis. Anyanwu Okoye supporters clash as Zabagun blames leaders for PDP crisis. And that's about it from the front page of Blueprint newspaper. At the top there, you find UK invests £60 million to promote innovative learning solutions in Nigeria. So who are those managing such funds?
We'll find out at the right time. But those are the headlines on the paper. So you can just pick up a copy or go online to read these papers just to get yourself familiar with the contents of some of these headlines. So you make a decision for yourself as far as the dailies are concerned. We'll take a quick break now. And when we come back, we'll start with the very first conversation about debt servicing, debt burden, debt generally that Nigeria has always had to deal with. It's a problem, but it's something that can be resolved. How do we do that? The experts will tell us. Join us again.